Originally, of course, it was a UT Arlington project. Derek would have his dinosaurs class and his geology students come out, and we would have a field day. We would teach them fossil excavation techniques. We would teach them fossil identification of the wide variety of creatures that were going to come out of here. Some of them at that point, we didn't know what they were, but they were pretty neat. We would have big digs. Typical dig every Saturday and Sunday was 40 to 50 people working. That's a pretty good sized deal. And the big digs, 130 to 150 people. And what Derek had a good idea, he'd run around to Fuzzies in these restaurants in and around Arlington, and he put diggers needed. And people responded. We had 17 years and up in age, and the public just came to us. I want to do this. I always wanted to do this. You're going to get to do it. So the core group, myself and probably 15 other people, would train these new groups that would come in. And so we got to dig by autopilot, dig there, okay? And they would dig. And people were so excited when they made discoveries or when other people made discoveries, because everybody's responsible when they're there and somebody else finds something. It's just like they found it too, okay? It's like buried treasure. And, you know, all of us have got that in us, that, you know, find hidden things that are lost. Okay, Woodbine geology. Notice right in the middle, we've got a formation called the Woodbine Formation. Contains the remnants of deltas, river deltas, coastal environments. Anything out to the west is ground. Okay, so 98 million years here, 103 million years here in Fort Worth. Downtown Dallas at the Ball is 80 million years old. So as you travel from Dallas on I-30 to Fort Worth, you're actually going back in time. Okay, if you keep that in mind when you look at the geology, the roadside geology, you can tell. Kenny was talking about those ammonites. The Woodbine Formation contains the most beautiful ammonites in our area. The stuff out to the west in Fort Worth are limestone molds. They're molds of those things. They don't really contain the shell. When they were mineralized, they were just empty holes that filled in. This is an overhead view of the Arlington Archosaur site. We've got a blue line that designates. Early on, we realized that we were sitting on the coast. We were sitting on the big seaway that ran from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arctic, and anything south of to the bottom of the blue line or to the south, we're containing marine creatures, ripple marks in sediment. When we find those, we get really excited because that tells us we're right on the beach. We're right there. Anything south of the blue line is all marine creatures: sharks, fish, lungfish, which can be in the delta or not in the delta. Of course, they breathe with primitive gills, primitive lungs. But and we named a new lungfish out of that, Ceratodus carteri, which Brad Carter is his name. And Kenny and myself are on a 3-person team. Okay, Brad Carter is probably the best fossil finder the state of Texas has ever seen. This young man, he's 40, is incredible. If you walk behind him when you're looking for fossils, you won't find anything. He's like a vacuum cleaner. He spots everything and picks it up. If you go in front of him, he'll find stuff that you missed and make
in your footprints
and make you feel dumb. Okay? He's a jewelry salesman at Jared's during the day. Okay? All the different type of people that we had come in volunteering, I just yell up, "Hey, anybody know anything about 503Cs?" People, "Oh yes, I'm I do this for a living." And so we had all of these, we used all these people's talents during this time. But anyway, anything north of that or to the top is terrestrial or ground creatures. Protohadros olivia and the babies were found in that were below right where it says hillside fossil sites. All of this down in here was excavated out and dumped in the valley. So anything south of here was dumped out. This was excavated also here and dumped out in the river valley. We had places, now that we talked to the men who did the work, so we recovered all those bones that we could. The paleo environment. We're actually dealing, like I say, with a Mississippi-style delta, Everglades swamp environment. We have creatures that can exist in saltwater, brackish water, or freshwater, all within 100 feet. So the evidence is there. The ripple marks, did we pull is there ripple marks out front?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a slab that we saved from the river valley that shows those ripples. I also have a slide here that's coming up. We got down so far in that swamp layer, all of a sudden we started uncovering trees. Trees that looked like they'd been under the soil for 20 years rather than 98. They had knot holes, and I've got a photograph. But there was a group of these. Here's better pictures of the orientation of them. We could also, that matched up with the ripple marks, where the water's flushing out of the delta. Those trees are actually pointing the direction of water flow for the most part. What was interesting is underneath these trees, we started finding turtles. We're talking turtles, not turtles. We're talking turtles. And every one of them were smashed and beaten and chomped on and da-da-da-da. And there was a characteristic round conical holes in the shell. That's telling us crocodiles, okay? A lot of, in paleontology, a lot of people go, Arlington Archosaur site, well, that's a crocodile site. Well, yeah, it is, but it's also in addition to everything else. So we started pulling out fragmentary turtles out from underneath that, and that is common behavior in modern alligator Mississippians, like we see on swamp people, those big crocs. If they're not hungry, they'll still kill a turtle, and they'll go underwater and they'll stick them under submerged logs for later. It's like midnight snack time. Okay, they'll go back and get them. So really, that's showing us some behavior that existed back then that exists today. All right, this is some stratigraphy. In other words, layers of soils, and we made this slide because it shows layers of yellow sand in between the darker gray layers are soils, okay? This is definite proof that the Arlington Archosaur site was right on the edge of the interior seaway. Wind-blown sand was blowing up into the delta and making those yellow rhythmite layers, okay? So we knew the environment, that every piece is adding to the environment of what we're looking at. We came up with this. The closest thing we got today to what the Arlington Archosaur site is a mangrove swamp. The reason why we say mangrove swamp is all of the trees and the branches are preserved in the excavations. They were all oval shaped. And the initial thought was, oh, well, they're compressed from weight of additional sediments. That's not the case. Those branches were oval shaped, and so are mangrove swamps. Mangroves. Okay? Here's the interior western seaway. This is a Chris Cotis of UTA map. He's world famous for his mapping of ancient environments or ancient continental ships. The little circle represents where the Arlington Archosaur site would be on that peninsula. Notice there's a peninsula stuck outside of the continent of Appalachia in the east, and this on the west is Laramidia. There is not much in the fossil record about dinosaurs in Appalachia, okay? before the Arlington Archosaur site, there was a big gap of what the environment and what the creatures were in the mid-Cretaceous. Arlington Archosaur site has ripped the curtain wide open and said, this is what was there, these are the creatures, and this is what it looked like. So anyway, during this particular period of Earth's history, you had global temperatures that are estimated to be 30 degrees hotter than they are today. So therefore, all the polar ice caps melted, sea levels rose, and the interior seaway was made. Now, hurricanes, wildfires. We have evidence at the Arlington Archosaur site of massive forest fires and massive hurricanes. Now, we know what a Cat 5 will do when it hits the Texas coast today. It usually peters out by Austin or San Antonio, right? But the water, and they're fueled by hot water, with global temperatures much hotter, these hurricanes would have been massive. And the evidence is there that they were massive. Would have come right up through the central part of our country with nothing to stop them. Okay? So, we found a tremendous amount of burned plant material that have piled up due to erosion coming down through the delta. In fact, I use large pieces of it for my driveway edging at my house. So people walk in, sometimes I get somebody who knows something walk out and go, whoa, what is that? But also in that those burned plant material, we also find very small bones of maybe primitive mammals, primitive and amphibian-like creatures. Okay, the Arlington Archosaur sites are ornithopods. Basically, we're going to be talking about two different types of two dinosaurs that are related, okay? And they're related through a common addition, and that's going to be Protohadros. That's the slide I'm skipping because I don't want to talk about the guy. Okay, all right. You have two different kind of creatures. You have Iguanodon, which is a well-known dinosaur, and it's known for having big arms, robust chest, and these funny little thumb spikes. Now, paleontologists have thought for a very long time that those were used as a defensive weapon, that he would poke. Something would attack him and they'd poke it. That doesn't hold really too much water. Really, those thumb spikes, they don't move like our thumbs. They just have a very limited movement on the skeleton there, just very little limited. And most likely they were used to root in the ground, or as a big bony deal to reach up and pull a branch down, hook it, and bring it down to its mouth. Because these are all plant eaters. They have, in the neighborhoods, give or take, well, there's 600 teeth in each, and they're big grinding machines. So we've got Iguanodon, which is about 110 million years old, okay? We're dealing with 98 million years old at the Arlington Archosaur site. Then after that period of time, going into the 80s, you have another creature called hadrosaurs. Hadrosaurs were not as heavily built as Iguanodon, and slight arms, probably couldn't hurt anybody. And Protohadros is sitting right in the middle of that time period. So evolutionary wise, it's probably, we figured Protohadros was a descendant of Iguanodon before hadrosaurs. Hadrosaurs had two different types of skull structure. The one on the right, the Lambeosaurs, those are tubes. And basically here's the nares, the nostril, air would come in, go all the way to the end, do 180, and come down, and it actually breathed into its throat with the air going right by its brain. So actually, the Royal Ontario Museum in Canada has many of these, and they blow air through them, and they kind of honk, they make a noise. It's either calling your girlfriend call or, hey, there's a bad guy coming. Okay, that's probably what that was used for. But anyway, non-crested hadrosaur ings is what we're looking at here with protohadros.